Hello, I'm Paiva for GeoLearn. I was recently at the AUVSI conference in May of 2014 and got to hear some updates on the UAS situation from the FAA. The person who was speaking was Jim Williams, who is the manager of the UAS Integration Office. And he announced that this fall they expect to publish what they call the NPRM, which is the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. Then they'll have a 60 to 90-day comment period, and then a year or more to take those comments and figure out how to change the proposed rules. So what this means is something like 2016, we don't know when exactly, for rules and a process to apply for and get permission to legally fly small unmanned airborne systems in the United States. This is, of course, way behind the original 2012 congressional mandate that was called for in the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012. However, there's hope. The hope is in Section 333 of that act. And in that act, it talks about that there is scope for something earlier to be implemented before those 2016 rules occur, where it's possible. And it specifically uses the term incremental integration of certain types of unmanned airborne systems for certain applications. And paraphrasing, it says for specific, limited, low-risk civil operations in advance of that rule. And the FAA administrator has identified this as a priority, so they are working on it. However, the FAA, as you know, is not a fast-moving bureaucracy. And so they're really only talking about doing this or processing applications later this year. We don't know what later this year means. That could be next month, it could be December, hopefully sooner rather than later. But basically, if you can make a case that a UAS can be operated in a controlled low-risk environment safely, they will determine what type of authorization that you need to apply for in that situation, and then you can try to get it. And if you do, then you will be able to complete mapping and surveying operations with an unmanned airborne system. Now, they don't specifically mention the surveying and mapping industry, but they talked about movie making, various agricultural applications, flare stack monitoring, which is a pretty dangerous activity. You pretty much have to shut the operation down to inspect the flare stack, and power line inspections, particularly in the case of lightning strikes where the top surface of the line is damaged. So my point here is that it can be that we can make a case that surveying and mapping in certain situations is also a low-risk operation. So we need to define or understand what low risk is so that our application to fly properly reflects that. So we need to understand that low risk means flying over sparse populations, flying where the aircraft is within line of sight of the operator, away from airports and restricted airspace, and more than likely, even now, a licensed pilot could just be a private pilot's certificate, not necessarily a commercial ticket that would be required to be able to fly an unmanned airborne system. At least somebody in the crew should be so certified. These are guesses, of course, on my part from interpreting what we've seen the FAA do. The permissions will probably be only for a limited time, so they will not be for an unlimited period of time. Probably for specific areas or projects, probably only for daytime applications, and probably for a specific aircrew, meaning you will need to show that you have an aircrew that's properly trained, contains that pilot, and it'll probably be that aircrew that will be permitted to fly. So how do you proceed if you are in the surveying and mapping space and wish to fly small unmanned airborne systems? More than likely, the FAA will not entertain applications from individuals, whether that's a single person or a corporation. So more likely, it's better to associate with a professional society, some kind of trade group. Something you can do as a group, especially in your state, is maybe if you happen to live in a state that is pro-UAS, work with that state agency that's promoting the use of UAS because they believe it's good for the state's economy to help you in making that application. You will need to be extremely well informed when you approach the FAA. Not knowing details about the regulations will not be an excuse and will probably make you sound less than competent at being able to fly a UAS if it looks like you're less than competent at being able to apply for that permission. More than likely, at least from the people I've talked with, both at AUVSI and prior, having a lawyer who is familiar with dealing with the FAA as part of your team would be an excellent idea. A couple of resources. The law itself is posted on the FAA site as well as many other sites. And then if you go to faa.gov/about/initiatives/UAS, you will get to the pages that relate to various kinds of matters that the FAA wishes to communicate about on their website. So thank you for listening, and hope that this gives you some incentive to think about the future positively with respect to unmanned airborne systems.